How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And welcome to this Dynamite special interview with Nick Baruchi. How's it going, Nick?
It's going great, man. How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. Before we get started, happy anniversary! 20 years of Dynamite Entertainment.
Kind of crazy, isn't it?
You tell me, how does that feel?
It's surreal. It really, really is surreal. I never could have imagined that Dynamite would be 20 years young at any point. It's what's the best way to say it? It's not something that I thought when we start. You never think about this, actually. You never think about this. You go in every day, you do the job, and that's all you can do is just do the job required and make the most of it. That's really what it comes down to. Let's see. Just want to do one thing. I don't know if you could tell, but it seems like my internet is slow. So I was trying to go on a different internet provider, but I don't know. Can you hear me? Am I freezing at all?
No, you're not freezing. You're not lagging. I think there's just a little bit of a little bit of a lag between you and I whenever I ask you a question. But that's okay. I'm sure it'll catch up.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so just a little bit of one. Nick, for the people that don't know who you are you, sir? What do you do?
All right, so Dynamite Entertainment, we're fortunate enough to be one of the premier publishers in the comics market. I am the CEO and publisher. I've been in the comics industry since I was 12 or 13 years old. I started selling at conventions as a weekend warrior. In 1992, we started Dynamic Forces, and in 2004, our lives changed dramatically because we launched Dynamite Entertainment. So I would say who I am is one of the luckiest people in the world. I get to do what I love, and I love what I do.
You have always been a big fan of comics, and now you are one of the publishers, like one of the big publishers still around, like working with licensed products too, like Disney and WB. It's crazy. And is that something that when you were younger, you were like, you know what? I think I want to publish comics. Or did you think, oh, I kind of want to make comics? Do you ever think you would be from the publisher standpoint?
I will say when I was 14 or 15 years old, shopping at Fat Jack's Comic Crypt, Bill Willingham, Matt Wagner, when they were working for Kamiko, shopped there. Paris Cullens, who was working on Blue Devil and then Blue Beetle, shopped there. I wanted to write and draw comics then for like a year or so. And it's kind of funny because this one guy who worked there, Bill Cuccinata, he was one of the Kamiko founders, but left. He said, for $5,000, I'll help you publish a comic. I'm like 14 years old. Where am I getting $5,000? I'm a poor little kid. The only reason why I started selling my comics was because I was poor and my family needed money. So fast forward 30 plus years later or 20 years later, whatever it is, and all of a sudden I'm publishing Matt Wagner and Bill Willingham, and that is surreal. But like I had a year or two in high school that I wanted to be a publisher, but I really enjoyed selling comics. I enjoyed reading comics, and I was 13, 14, 15 years old. That's like saying you want to be an astronaut when you're a kid. It's like you just want to be what looks good. But when I started doing the sign books and the statues and the collectibles, I was really enjoying life. Publishing was actually a Hail Mary for us. We never intended to become a publisher. That was truly a Hail Mary because of just where business was at. So yeah, I mean, if you would have told me that I would be a publisher that had a comic that inspired one of the best TV shows in the world today, The Boys, that I'd be a producer on the Red Sonja movie, that we would have a Vampirella movie and TV series uh, in the pipeline. If you would have told, that we're working on an Evil Ernie TV series, if you would have told me all this when I was younger, I wouldn't have believed it. I just would not have believed it. I would have said that's a dream that's too far away. It couldn't happen. And to be the only publisher in 50 years to publish major Warner Brothers and major Disney titles at the same time. I mean, the last company that did that was Dell Comics. That's how far back it's been since one publisher had major Disney and major Warner Brothers properties. I mean, IDW had some Warner Brothers properties and some Disney properties 12 years ago, but it wasn't as all encompassing as what we have right now. So,
man, that's it's crazy how a lot of the comics that you probably read as a kid or young, or even, going into your teenage years and your 20s now are being published by Dynamite, right? Including some of the like epic stuff like Vampirella, like the Vampirella archives that you all did, the beautiful hardcovers. And that's just to name one property. You have Red Sonja and you have all of these other different properties that you all are working with. You've had these Kickstarters recently of Gargoyles. You've got one going on with Darkwing Duck. It's like all these different properties that are now being published or can be published by Dynamite. You take a step back and go, man, how did that happen? Like, how did we get over here? Like, we got so much going on.
It's hard to take a step back when you're in the middle of it. When you're in the middle of it, all you can do is continue to move it forward, continue to try and do the best you can do. That's the job. I say to my guys on a regular basis, remember, we can have a crap day. A lot of stuff can go wrong. Things can be frustrating. But what we have to keep in mind is we make people happy every day. We make people excited every day. We bring comics to people and give them their escapism. And that's a rewarding thought, but also a responsibility. You can't take it for granted. And when you look at some of the projects we've done, some of them have been near impossible. We talked to IFPL for 3 years, flew to the UK back and forth, had multiple conversations before we all agreed to do James Bond together. That took 3 years of discussions. Disney took 8 years. We talked to 3 different people at Disney as people changed jobs at Disney. We spoke with 3 different people in licensed publishing over the course of 8 years. And about the 8th year, this is no joke, I think it was April 1st, 2021, we picked titles that both Disney and Dynamite liked and thought we could do well with. And it took until like the following March. Big corporations, contracts can take some time. So it took till the following March before the contract was signed. Mm-hmm. And then we hit the ground running with Gargoyles and Darkwing Duck. Warner Brothers was interesting as well. That was 10 years. So we spoke with the same person at Warner Brothers for 10 years. The 8th year of talking to him, we put in a proposal for Thundercats and Lost Boys. And the proposal, being a big corporation, they have a minimum amount of money they need in an agreement to make it viable for them to move forward. Mm-hmm. Because they have a lot of expenses that smaller people don't have. So, by the way, real quick, Bunkmaster 8 on comics. Send me that email. That's a great idea. We've talked about it in the past, but we haven't done it. There's also 3 issues written by Luke Lieberman after that. Would you add those in, or would you just focus on Mark Russell? Because it was a 28-issue series, and I think Mark wrote 24 or 25. So let me know about that.
Wait a minute. You're talking to somebody else about mapping an omnibus other than me? What's going on here, Nick?
He's the Kickstarter. You're going to tell me what the answer is finally.
I'm just kidding, man. People are saying congratulations and a big thank you to Dynamite Comics for publishing Jim Butcher's Dresden Files. That is something that I do want to talk about, things like this here in a little bit. And Dynamite currently rereading the action-packed James Bond by Warren Ellis omnibus. Love this whole series. The James Bond series has been amazing, by the way, when you all have been publishing them. Every one of those standard the standard size hardcovers have been great to read. And if people haven't checked them out, they keep pumping these out every so often, and they're awesome. They're standalone. So 20 years in the industry, learned a lot of things. I'm sure learned a lot of things. Not easy, but you're here 20 years later. You came. I mean, that's 2004, right? At the right out of the whole comic books flopping, publishers declaring bankruptcy, and coming out of the late 90s, so into the early aughts, with the high hopes that, hey, maybe now's the time to do it. So I didn't want to do it. So this is what happened. Back in the early aughts, Wizard was always doing 1/2 issues, right? Mm-hmm. You could mail away for a Wizard 1/2, or it was polybagged in the comic. Wizard always had those 0s and 1/2 issues. And we did some prelude books as Dynamic Forces in 2002, 2003. We did like a Darkness prelude by Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee. We did a Tomb Raider prelude by Jeff Johns and Mark Texiera. We did a Fathom prelude with I think it was JT Krull and Ali Garza. We did a Witchblade prelude with Mark Millar and Jay Lee. We created all these prelude books, and we sold them wholesale to comic retailers. And comic retailers, a lot of comic retailers didn't support it. To a lot of comic retailers, we were the last vestige of the collectibles and everything that was wrong with comics. The speculator boom of the 90s. And so we were persona non grata to the comics market, to some retailers. Some retailers supported us big time, others didn't. And it was ironic because we were giving all retailers the one thing that they were complaining about. We were creating preludes because we didn't want to call them 1/2s like Wizard did. So, we even did a Crimson prelude with Humberto Ramos. And we were creating these preludes, and the retailers that didn't like Dynamic Forces didn't support it. But the retailers that did like Dynamic Forces or like the books and the creators supported it. And they got a good discount, and they could have made money. What happened was in 2003, sometime in 2003, we were told by Marvel they weren't renewing our comic license. You guys were doing variant covers, right, for Marvel? No, this was variant covers we can still do. That's open to all retailers. We were doing statues, lithographs, G-Clays. We were doing like 2 to 3 statues a month. We're doing a couple of lithographs a month. Like John Romita Jr. and Alex Ross did this beautiful 150 character lithograph of all the characters that John Romita Jr. John Romita Sr. either created, co-created, or designed. I mean, everybody from Kingpin and Mary Jane to the Punisher, Wolverine, the redesigned Captain Marvel. It was just gorgeous. And it was kind of funny because John started drawing it and named all the characters he created, but Alex is so in tune with everything.
Silver and Bronze Age, that he actually said, John, you forgot all these characters. So Alex actually, I think, did a thumbnail for John of how he would like to see John, where he wanted all the characters. And then John drew based on Alex's thumbnail, and then Alex painted over that. We were doing collector plates. We were doing all these collectibles. And that was almost 40% of our business, give or take. Now, when we lost that license, I had something that I had to make a decision on. I was probably going to lay off 40 to 60% of my staff. And that was a tough pill to swallow. And I was getting the license for Army of Darkness for trading cards and statues.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine said, if you're going to get this license for trading cards and statues, why don't you get the comic book license? And my friend Jim, and Jim is Jim Kohoric, who now works with us and does all the Kickstarters, who you've met.
Yeah, he's been on
interview with you.
Yeah, he's been on the show with me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he said, get the Army of Darkness comic license. I was like, Jim, I don't want to be a comic publisher. That's the road of going out of business. And I said, listen, let's start with this. Who wants the Army of Darkness? Dark Horse did 3 issues by Sam Raimi and John Bolton. They were gorgeous. They were incredibly beautiful. If they were successful, Dark Horse would have continued, but they didn't do it after the 3 issues. And Jim said, Nick, listen, you gotta trust me on this. It's been over 10 years. There's a desire to have more stories. You will absolutely do well with it. And so we asked, it got added in, and then we had another decision to make. If we did it, one of the reasons why I didn't want to be a publisher, if you're making statues, if I made 3 statues in 1 month, I'm hiring 1 to 3 sculptors, 1 to 3 painters, and 1 to 3 photographers. And then somebody overseeing quality control in China and everything. If I'm doing a lithograph, it's a penciler, inker, colorist, or an artist and a colorist, or a painter, whatever. If I'm doing collector plates, it's a collector plate. Usually that was pickup art as a limited edition. And you can control that better, and you don't need as big of a staff. When you become a comic publisher, you have a responsibility not only to your employees, not only to your fans, but to the retailers and consumers that support you. And you have to deliver as on time as you can. And that's a big responsibility. On top of that, that's a bigger staff. And the biggest reason why I didn't want to do it, besides the responsibility, is how many publishers actually stayed in business.
Well, that's the thing I was going to mention.
Yeah.
I was going to mention, like, not a lot of publishers around that time stayed. And this is not to interrupt the flow of your story. I love hearing this. This is also the time when everybody thought they were going to get rich from becoming manga publishers. We saw we saw it towards the end of the 90s, the big manga boom from Tokyo Pop.
Yeah.
But Tokyo Pop learned the hard way that buying up licenses left and right, you're just burning yourself out. Like, they learned the hardest way possible. There was money to be made, but then you have like Iron Cat Studios and CMP and all these different studios that were publishing manga for the first time, and everybody was putting out books for about a couple of years, and then every one of them just crashed.
Even DC Comics launched a manga division.
The CMX line. I mean, even DC tried, right? Absolutely, they tried to get into it, and then it crashed and burned badly. And
no, absolutely, and that's the tough part about publishing. I mean, Eclipse Comics had Miracle Man. They actually had some good manga with Area 88.
Area 88. Yeah,
Mai the Psychic Girl.
Kamui.
Yep. And Eclipse did well. Chaos Comics made like $9 million in 1994. and eventually they filed for bankruptcy. CrossGen had $35 million.
Yeah.
They went out of business. Who wants to be a publisher? Even by the way, do you know what First Comics did before anybody else, with the exception of DC?
First Comics? No. What did they do?
They went back to press on a best-selling book over and over again, Lone Wolf and Cub. They, instead of letting it sit out there as a collectible, they kept going back to press because the book kept selling. It kept selling in the libraries, kept selling in the comic stores. Had that beautiful Frank Miller cover. Isn't it weird? But even then, they were doing so well. They had American Flag. They had John Sable. They went out of business. Kamiko went out of business with the Elementals. There were so many publishers, and then, if you were a publisher that were with a certain genre or type, like Fantagraphics does well with what they do, but we couldn't get into that field because they're experts at it and we're not. So we really focused on superheroes and authors and and sword and sorcery and sci-fi genres that we could do. But I really thought that no matter what we did, we'd be out of business in a few years.
Sorry. I need to address something. Marvel was in bankruptcy in the 90s when they lost Star Wars license and sold some of their characters. If you go back and watch my Fabian Nicieza interview, he puts it completely out there what really happened with the Marvel, because he was there when all this was happening with the quote unquote Marvel bankruptcy, because it wasn't really Marvel Comics filing bankruptcy. There's a lot to that story, and he just lays it out there. If you want to go back to that, go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, that was Ron Perlman overreaching, trying to prop up the stock. I mean, that's all that was. I mean, that's why he bought the trading card companies. That's why he bought Heroes World, which was the biggest debacle, which we could talk about for 2 minutes in a minute. But I really thought, maybe it'll last for a little bit, but we would be shutting it down within a few years. So, like I said, retailers, there are a segment of retailers that blamed us for the market falling apart. Again, we were the last vestige of that collectibles part of the industry. And so from the Prelude books not selling to a bunch of retailers, and also the fact that we weren't sure where it would go, that's why we called it Dynamite. And the other thing we did was so that in the Diamond Previews catalog, we didn't want it to be after Dynamic Forces. So when it was solicited as D.E. so that it would be before Dynamic Forces. Otherwise, if it was Dynamite, it would be after Dynamic Forces. And in the first 2 years, we didn't even tell anybody who we were. I mean, not that we were ashamed or anything, but so
you try to separate yourself from the Dynamic Forces?
Yeah, Dynamite from Dynamic Forces, because I didn't want retailers to cut orders just because it was us. And that's what was going to happen. And that was my big fear. And at that point, taking on more employees, taking on more risk, and doing a lot more that the things I didn't want to do, all the things I didn't want to do, I had to do. So when we had quotes for a while, it was our PR person was Jay Allen, which I can't believe no one figured that one out. Because it was Jay Garrick and Barry Allen. Yep. Only thing that would have been more obvious would have been like Hal Murdoch or Roman Murdoch, or Matthew Roman, get Hal Jordan, Namor, and Daredevil in there somehow. I knew not to use the name Fisk because I've never heard anybody else have the name Fisk outside of Wilson Fisk. What happened was a chain of events happened. We got, we're looking at this and we're having success, and we're growing slowly and organically. And you always got that thing over your head. Okay, when's this going to end? When's it going to end? When is it going to end? Like, what's going to be the death knell? What are we going to do wrong? What's the market going to reject from us? But we took a lot of risks. So when it came to Red Sonja, Here's another one where somebody had similar thoughts to me. One of my guys in my office said we should get the Red Sonja license. Now, Conan had left Marvel, and Dark Horse got it. There were lots of publishers that were trying to get it, including Top Cow, and Dark Horse ended up getting it. And Dark Horse didn't want Red Sonja. And then Cross Planes happened. Cross Planes happened, and they went out, and they had Steve Lytle art, and I love Steve Lytle art. And they went out of business after the first issue. So everybody looked at it like, who wants Spider-Girl when you can have Spider-Man? You know what I mean? Like, who wants Batgirl when you can have Batman and Robin? You know, it's like this. She's the watered down version. And they were like, the only time Red Sonja was popular was when Barry Windsor Smith was drawing her. And we looked at it like, well, if that's the, we looked at it like, how do we get Red Sonja up there? So, you're right. I'm not a big baseball fan. Sorry. I'm not. And you know what? Funny enough, Mark Silvestri drew some issues of Conan at Marvel.
He did. Yeah. He did. Under the name Mark Silvestri with a K. I was probably nobody knew who this kid was. They were like, yeah, Mark Silvestri, got it. I misspelled his name. So I had a great relationship with Stan Lee with Dynamic Forces. Like, he would fly to Home Shopping Network and do shows with me. And my guy said, I was looking at the Red Sonja movie, and one of the producers is Michael A. Lieberman. Do you think he's related to Arthur Lieberman? Because it's kind of a coincidence. So I contacted Arthur, and he said, yeah, actually, I own Red Sonja. What happened was the Robert E. Howard characters were all spread out, and people were taking advantage because when Howard committed suicide, he left the characters to his doctor's family. So he said it was basically, Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. I had to put it back together. So I have a little bit of equity in all of Robert E. Howard, but I kept Red Sonja for myself. So I asked him, why does it say Michael A. Lieberman? And he's like, because I knew that movie was a piece of crap and I didn't want my name on it. So I was like, okay. So he had a proposal from Atomica Comics for Red Sonja. And I'm going by memory, and I think what he said was if you want to make a proposal, I'm going to give you one of two choices. Either you make a blind proposal, or I tell you what Atomica offered, you tell me if you want to beat it, but I'm going to go back to Atomica and give them a chance to beat your offer. Now, I think I wanted to know what Atomica offered, but I can't remember. So the tough part is, this is, like I said, we lost the Marvel license. I've got to build up staff. Money's tight. I had to borrow money on my credit cards to get the money to get the Red Sonja rights. So, and that's not the first time I had to borrow money on my credit card. Actually, it wasn't the first time I had to borrow money on my credit card to make it work. I had done that before under Dynamic Forces for Star Wars Episode 1 and for Pokemon, but that's a story for another day. So I borrowed the money, I got the rights, and I called everybody. I called Kurt Busiek. He said, no one should write Red Sonja but Roy Thomas. I don't remember what Roy said, if anything. I don't even remember if we talked. Called Jeff Loeb, wasn't interested. Called Joe Michael Straczynski, wasn't interested. Called Brian Michael Bendis. I flew to the UK when I was doing QVC shows, and I had lunch with Mike Carey, and I tried to talk him into it because I thought Mike Carey would be great, and he turned it down. That is thinking outside the box, dude. By the way, if you haven't ever been to one of the claim sales that we do here on Near Mint Condition, the only time I've ever done it has been with Nick. He's so awesome because he sold stuff before in the past, and we do it because a lot of the proceeds go to a good cause, which we'll get to here in a second when we talk about the Humble Bundle. So Mike Carey, thinking outside the box, what happened?
So multiple times I spoke with Mike, and he said no, and I really wanted to work with him. And then Brian Michael Bendis suggested Michael A. Von Oming. He's like, look, he's great with sword and sorcery. Mice Templar. Look at everything that he's doing. Hammer of the Gods. So I talked to Michael A. Von Oming, and I asked Michael, if I got you a co-writer for a year, would you be okay with that? And he was like, well, it depends who the co-writer is. And I said, well, it's Mike Carey, who a lot of people think is pretty much like up there, not necessarily a sword and sorcery guy, but he would be great. So I contacted Mike Carey one more time, and I asked if he would co-write 12 issues with Omi, and I think my tenacity finally convinced him. He said, I'll do 6 issues. And, you've been asking me for a while, so I'll do 6 issues. And that's how we got Mike Carey and Michael A. Von Oming, And
let me also say something else about Nick. I don't know a lot of people realize this. Nick has made a lot of friends in the industry. I have interviewed so many people on my time here in Near Mint Condition, and any creator that has ever worked with Nick, first of all, they call him Nicky because they're good friends, and they're like, "Look, this is how the story happened." Okay, Nicky would not stop bothering the hell out of me until I said yes. Persistence. I love. If you don't like, that is the thing about Nick, like persistence, and until he gets what he has been looking for. And I think that's any creator that you've wanted on the book, whether it's a writer or an artist, it's always like, oh yeah, Nick would not leave me alone until I said yes. Now that's not every creator. Some of them are happy to work with you, but it's funny how many friends you make in the industry, and then years later you're like, hey, how about this book? I think you guys would be great at it. Asking for a few years, bringing it up when you go to dinner, and then before you know it, he's like, here I am writing the book, or here I am drawing the book.
Like Joe Michael Straczynski, he turned me down on Sonja, and I kept talking to him for a few years, and eventually found out how much he loved Twilight Zone, and I went and got Twilight Zone so he could write it,
Yeah.
So Mark Waid eventually wrote a Green Hornet series for us, which we were blessed to have. Kurt Busiek wrote the Kirby verse, Kirby Genesis, which we were blessed to have. So, I'm tenacious or stupid. I don't know which one it is. And one is not necessarily mutually exclusive from the other.
Need I remind you, you've been in the business for 20 years, though. So I think that does say something about tenaciousness, right? I don't think stupid. I think you've definitely made the right connections, stayed in touch with the right people, and people keep coming back to you. I mean, anybody that has worked with you has spoke highly of you and the group of people like Gail Simone. I remember talking to her a few years back, talking about how great of an experience it was writing Red Sonja. Giving that to her. Really quick, this is from my buddy Bunkmaster B. Need to jump off to pick up my parents from the airport, but had to put in some seed money for the Mark Russell Red Sonja Deluxe. Congratulations on 20 years.
Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate it. So on Red Sonja, we got that license, and then what happened was eventually we got Battlestar Galactica, Highlander. Highlander was a terrible deal. That's when we got screwed on. That rights holder was not good. He lied to us left, right, and center. He was not a nice person. So when we got Battlestar Galactica, and it's hard when you get like a big license, a popular TV show or movie, and the creative team on the TV series or movie have to be involved in all the editorial decisions. So we had to wait 5 months to get on the phone with Ron Moore to talk about Battlestar Galactica. And we send in like 4 proposals for stories. I'm like, oh God, this is good. You're like, can we get on the phone? And then when it's finally on the books, you're like, oh boy, I can't wait for him to tell me everything that's wrong with these. And this is going to get stuck in the mud, and these stories will never move forward. And we just paid all this money for this license, blah, 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 blah. And we get on the phone with him, and he is the sweetest guy in the world. He said, look, out of these 4 pitches, let's start with the one I like. I like this one. I'd like you to move forward with this. This guy, Greg Pak, is good. He then said, this one I like, but it's not as good as I think it can be. I'm sending you my notes. These 2 I don't like at all. I really prefer you not move forward with them. He didn't even say you can't do them. He said, I prefer you not move forward with them. I mean, he was so nice. And then he said, listen, I've got about 5 or 6 ideas. I think it was 5 or 6. It's been so long. He said, I got 5 or 6 ideas. And if you want to do them, great. Some of them for us to shoot the show would cost too much money and we can't do it. And some of them are kind of flashbacks. And we can't do too many flashbacks because otherwise it makes a boring show. So you could do the backstory and you can run with these any way you want. I mean, it was like, oh my God. So we were able to do that. And then we got interviewed by TV Guide. Young people might not even remember what TV Guide is. Might not even know.
I think there was a channel, maybe like a website.
Back in the day, there was only 2 ways to find out what was on TV: flip through the channels or read TV Guide. It was one or the other. I can't talk about the amounts of the licenses. There's NDAs in the contract, so I can't talk about that. Summoner. I'm sorry. So I do an interview with TV Guide, and the guy asked me something like, how do you spell your name? I was like, oh, you're not quoting me. You're quoting either Dynamite Entertainment or Jay Allen. Because, we're staying behind the scenes. That's our pen name, whatever. And he goes, listen, you got one of 2 choices. I'm either quoting you or I'm killing this story. Which do you prefer? So it's Nick. And then my last name's B as in boy, Arrucci. That's CCI, not CHI. People sometimes make that mistake. So at that point, it's like, all right, we're out there. We're friggin' out there. I mean, even The Boys was a really interesting license to get.
Yeah, because a lot of people that may be familiar with The Boys through Dynamite or the TV show, that product or that comic actually started at the Distinguished Competition.
Well, it was at DC and Wildstorm. I mean, yeah. So what happened was, like, I don't know the full story, but what happened was apparently 6 issues had been published, and Paul had never read the book, and he finally read the book, and he was like, "Wait a minute, these are analogs of the Justice League."
Oh, they didn't like the Teen Titans idea. They were pissed about that too.
Yeah, right. The Brat Pack idea. So he was like, wait a minute, wait. We got the analog of Superman doing coke. They're doing all this deviant stuff. We can't publish this. So Paul canceled the book. Derek Robertson did an interview with Comics Beat. I will tell you this. The Boys was one of my favorite comics. When I went to the comics, I was at a Wizard World Philly convention, and I saw Derek Robertson talking to Charles Brownstein about this book he was doing with Garth Ennis, and it was the best book he'd ever drawn in his life, and how much he loved that book, and it was going to be just the most exciting thing ever. So when I saw the solicits for a Garth Ennis, Derek Robertson book, I read it. It ended up being one of my favorite books at the time. So as soon as I read that article, I went to Joe and Juan and I said, listen, we're going to go after the Boys license. And Juan was like, we got to run the numbers first. I said, we're not running the numbers. We're going to see if we can get the rights to the comic. So, so I called Derek, and Derek's like, well, this is a group decision. Both Garth and I have to agree. You're my friend, Nikki, and we work together well, and we survived Tijuana together, and we've done a lot of good stuff together. And he said, but you got to talk to Garth too. You've got my vote, but you got to talk to Garth. And I think I'm going to let, Garth be a little bit more the decider on this. So I talked to Garth, and we talked to Garth, and Garth wasn't. I didn't have a relationship with Garth. It's as simple as that. Garth also only knew us as a signed book company. He didn't know us as a publisher.
Mhm.
So he didn't have that, I'll say, for lack of a better word, respect for us. So Paul had suggested that they go with Dark Horse. And, I think that Garth and Derek gave that due consideration, and they talked to Image and they talked to IDW. The one publisher they were not allowed to take it to, and DC owned the publishing rights, so they could stop it. The one publisher they would not allow Garth and Derek to take the rights to is Marvel for the Max line or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, because the Max line, and Icon line was the creator-owned line.
Yes.
So Garth said he had to think about it. I asked him if it was okay to send him some comics for him to review. So I sent him comics, our collections, our hardcovers, our periodicals. Now, Garth doesn't read American comics. He just doesn't. He's not. I mean, he reads some, but he doesn't read a lot. So, and he definitely didn't read anything we did. He read Jason Aaron's Scalped, I think. I think he read anything Brian K. Vaughan wrote. So I sent him and Derek a box of books and said, please don't look at, hey, Joe, how are you? Please don't look at, I'm not asking you to look at the writing or the art or the coloring or the lettering. I want you to look at the quality of the printing that we use in our periodicals, in our collections, in our hardcover, in our omnibuses. And Garth said, I'm going to go to Boston for the weekend with my wife, and I'm going to be thinking about this all weekend. And he came back and said, we're going to go with you. You're the only publisher that didn't assume that I knew what you were doing and actually did a professional thing and sent me books with a letter. He said, everybody else just assumed I knew what they were doing. And I don't. He said, the only company whose work I know is Vertigo. Garth is not pretentious at all, King's port call. He's actually pragmatic.
I love Garth, but he will tell you straight up, one of it, like, he doesn't, well, I mean, he says he doesn't like superhero comics, but he loves war comics. We bonded over that when I had him on the show.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, look, the only thing that you can accuse Garth of being is just blunt. I mean, that's all, you can accuse Garth of being blunt. You can't accuse him of much else. So we got the boys, to a lot of people's dismay. And I do think to a degree, just the whole controversy led to more sales. Hey, Melanie, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
Great to see you.
I'll just sit here for a minute. You don't have to change the name.
Okay, boss. Okay.
What are you guys talking about?
We're talking about the history of Dynamite and how Nick got started, how he didn't want to be a publisher, and how now he's a publisher 20 years later. And we're about to talk about the Humble Bundle, and then how people can buy it. The link is in the description of the video, by the way. So you came in at the right time. Nick, he's a storyteller, and I love asking questions and listening to him. Behind the scenes.
At 4, didn't you?
We did a little later than 4.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. That's why people come here, to learn a little bit about different publishers. And I think it's a great freaking story of how he came about and how he made connections and how Garth Ennis had no idea who he was, and then all of a sudden now.
Oh no, he knew who I was. He didn't know what our books were.
What the books were. That's right.
Okay.
The last time Garth worked with us, I think, was when he was doing the Darkness and Medieval Witchblade Spawn, when he wrote those. And thanks, Kim's Portgal. He wasn't a fan of the signed books either. So that's all he knew about us. And the one funny thing is, I got to give Jimmy Palmiotti some appreciation too and credit. One thing that happened was Brian K. Vaughan, when he was doing the Ultimate book, signed some books. And as I thank you, I took him and Jimmy out to dinner, and Garth joined us, and I treated. And Jimmy said to Garth, maybe you should sign books for him just one time. And Garth did that Ghost Rider miniseries, and he signed copies. And that was like the first time in maybe 10 years that he and I sat down and talked. You know, I mean, when I went to the UCAC shows and I'd buy some beers, you know, we would talk then. But so that did, that did open the door a little. And when Derek and Garth were asking advice, Jimmy worked with everybody. Jimmy did say he felt we would be the best publisher for him. So I got to give Jimmy some thanks and credit as well. So that's the boys. And then you guys want to hear the craziest thing I ever did?
Let's hear it, Nick. Let's hear it.
Jumped off a cliff.
No, not that crazy. What'd you do, Nick?
When I bought Vampirella.
How'd you do that?
So we were negotiating to publish Vampirella.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened before we got involved in discussing publishing, Harris Publications, Jim Warren had filed, I'm going by memory. So Jim Warren, I believe, had filed bankruptcy in the 70s, both in New York State and Pennsylvania. So what he did was like he said he woke up from a 30-year, like he was in a fog, depressed, something like that. Again, I'm going by memory. If I got it wrong, I apologize. And he sued Harris Publications for Vampirella, Creepy and Eerie. And Stanley didn't feel like being in a lawsuit. So they settled, and Jim Warren got Creepy and Eerie. Stanley kept Vampirella. And, we had done a really good job with Red Sonja, and we're attached to the movie. We were attached to the animated movie. A lot of good stuff happened, but, you're a licensee and you don't own it. So I asked Stanley in the middle of the meeting, I was like, would you ever consider selling Vampirella? And he said, for the right price. We actually he said, we had a conversation with another publisher, but they didn't want to pay our price. I like how Nick assumed we all know the history of Vampirella. I'm not assuming that. I'm just telling you the history of me getting Vampirella. Just smiled and signed checks at some point. I don't know about that. I mean, you got to.
Harris had a price.
Harris Publications, remember, they were like a $400 million a year magazine publisher.
Mm-hmm.
They were, comics was the smallest thing they did. That was the smallest thing they did. And what happened before that was speaking of Mike Carey, they had Mike Carey do a mini series that I think Mike Lilly drew, and they did a 0.25 issue. They were trying to replicate what we did with Red Sonja, but that didn't work out as well. You need to really be able to go through with it. Same thing happened with Random House when they did The Strain. They were like, okay, we'll do a quarter book, then we'll do Stephen King's periodicals. It'll sell great. And it didn't, which is how we got to be involved in Game of Thrones. Story for another day. So I sat there with Stanley Harris. And then my attorney got involved, Bob Stein, and Johnny Reingold was involved. And by coincidence, Johnny Reingold and Bob Stein went to the same temple. So they knew each other from there a little bit. That's right. Melanie is the boss. And when she tells me to shut up, I'm going to shut up.
What? No.
That's only during auctions, Nick.
Oh, yeah. A couple times I was trying to help you sell stuff.
Nick has a story behind everything. Go ahead, Nick.
So Stan gives me the number, and it's a big number. And I'm thinking to myself, how the hell am I going to do this? And I talked to Johnny Reingold, and I said, look, if I borrow on all my credit cards and then get a credit line or mortgage on the house, I can make the down payment. And Johnny was like, I'll talk to Stanley. That's you and Stanley. So I did a deal with Stanley that is the craziest deal I ever did. And I don't know that I'd ever do this deal again. I put money down. I borrowed from my credit cards. And then, we closed the deal in 2 weeks. Oh. I couldn't get a mortgage or a refinance on the house quick enough. So I borrowed on all the credit cards. Don't tell the credit card companies, but because you're not allowed to do this, they frown on this. I put all the credit cards on Dynamic Forces. So like my company got my credit cards. So the credit card companies frown when you put money into your own account using your own credit cards. Let's just keep it between us. So, but here's the deal that I signed. I had to make a yearly payment for like 4 or 5 years. And if I missed a payment by a day, the rights reverted back. And then there was a big balloon payment at the end. So by December 31st each year, I had to make a payment. And if I missed it by one day, the rights reverted. It is definitely, I think the stupidest deal anybody could ever make. But Stanley's opinion, which I respected, was, I'm giving you the chance to buy this with a payment plan. And dude, guys, I'm telling you, this was a big number, a huge number. And one year, like the second or third year, because it's so much money, I'm doing it on the last day. Like if the last day before Saturday or Sunday was like the 29th or 30th, I did it on that day, But like I would wait till the 31st because it's like, oh my God, I gotta, capture all this money. The first year I had to pay back the mortgage, blah, blah, blah. So I think I ate ramen noodles for a few months. So like the second or third year, I got stuck in traffic going to the bank. The money was so much, I couldn't do it from the computer. I had to physically be at the bank, show 2 forms of ID, and prove that it was me. And I got there at like 5:03, and they were like, this isn't going to go through before 3:00. And I'm like, please, I really need this. I can't express why, but this has to go through before 3:00. And she took pity on me. She set aside what she was doing. The wire went through at like 2:58. This is like one of those movies where like you hit the deactivate bomb in like 3 seconds left, like 2 minutes left. That was the scariest time. And then the other scary time was the balloon payment at the end. That was scary, putting that money together, because that one would have really, really pissed me off if I missed the balloon payment, paid all that money for 5 years. And then, if I would have lost it in the first year or second year, I wouldn't have felt so bad. The thing is when we were offered this, I'm a little bit of a gambler. So as a poker player, I'd rather lose a hand putting all my money in and having tried than fold with the winning hand. So again, not something... Josh Greathouse, it caused a lot of stress. Hey, Jewish Dragons, thank you for being here. So I'd rather, if I would have lost in the first 2 years, maybe even the third year when I almost didn't make it on time.
Oh my gosh.
I wouldn't have felt
Vampirella.
I would have lost money, but I wouldn't have felt so bad. If I didn't make that balloon payment at the end, I would have been like, oh, you're such a schmuck. So we made it.
Maybe some other choice words.
Yes. So that is the craziest deal I ever made, because that was, and Stanley would have been, somebody asked me, do you think Stanley would have, let it go if you're a few days late? And I said, I don't know. I didn't want to find out.
Right. Nick, I'm so sorry. I'm going to go watch upstairs. It hurts to sit, so I'm going to go lie in the recliner. I'm sorry.
Take care of yourself. It's good to see you. Thank you for stopping by.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, baby.
You're okay.
So if that happened, Stanley was well within his rights, and that would have been it. The funny thing is I got an email from the other publisher that was talking to Stanley to buy it, and he was a bigger publisher. And he said, I don't know why you bought it. The number he gave me was more than it was worth. And, look, this is like 2009, 2010. How often do you get the ability to buy an icon that's like 41 years old? I mean, if I didn't try, I could live with trying and failing. I couldn't live with not trying. If I would not have tried, I would be regretting it for the rest of my life.
I think that's really important. Whether, like you said it, whether you succeed or you fail, it's the trying that matters. I think a lot of the times. Um, well, it's a good thing it worked out for you, and you're still putting out Vampirella books.
Yes.
And putting out collections. So before we talk about this humble bundle, because I know people want to know about it, 20 years. Do you all have any plans for like anything special going on for collected editions? Maybe in the future? Like what's in the future for Dynamite? And I know I've had you on and I've talked to you about, I mean, obviously we played a big role in the Boys Omnibus editions, which are great.
Dude, I would say you and Vincent were like 90% of the reason why we did that. You and Vincent were 90%. You, Vincent, and your fans were 90% of the reason why we did that, because that felt like a risk. Next time we'll talk about the entire boys risk when the TV show happened.
Okay.
But you know, you guys, we've got some stuff. Our San Diego Comic-Con, we have some big people coming to our con. 10 years ago, we had Quentin Tarantino. So
I saw your post, man. That's so cool.
Yeah. This year we're doing at least 2 stars if everything comes together. We've got 2 projects we're going to be announcing at the convention. And so our 20th anniversary looks like the Mark Russell collection is going to get an oversized omnibus now.
Thanks to Bunk. Oh man, that's what's up. Nick, I'm ready to announce some big collections, man. You got my number. I'm ready to put on a suit and announce some Dynamite exclusive hardcovers and oversized hardcovers. I know we've talked about, the Christopher Priest run, and I had him on the show. He's another one that was like, "Oh, Nikki, yeah, man, he wanted me to write Vampirella." I was like, "No," and you did it. You got him on Vampirella.
He turned me down. I drove 5.5 hours to Connecticut. I left at 12 o'clock. I thought it was a 3-hour drive. I left at 12 o'clock, got to the show at 4:30, ran through the hotel. It was at the Terrificon. It was at the Mohegan Sun Hotel and Casino Convention Center. I ran through everything, got my ticket, got my pass, got to Priest 10 minutes before he was leaving. And he was signing for a couple of kids, Black Panther posters. And he saw me and he came out and gave me a big hug. And he was like, and I was like, "Priest, you got to talk to the kids first." Finished talking to the kids. And, Priest isn't the type of guy who goes to a bar after a show or anything. He just goes to his room, chills. As far as I know, doesn't even bother to grab a dinner, right? He orders room service and he just, relaxes or does some work. So I'm talking to him, and he's got this look of, after he gives me the hug and everything, he's got this look of, "Okay, what do you want now?" And we had talked for years about him writing something for me, but nothing ever came together. And that's so nice to hear, man. That's so nice to hear. So I said to him, "Look, it's Vampirella's 50th anniversary. There's only 2 writers I want to approach. And I've been wanting to work with you for years." I never got to approach the second writer because, and I don't know that she would have said yes. She probably wouldn't have said yes. She's too successful with everything she's doing, and she's having a great time with creator owned and everything she does outside of comics. So I'm pretty positive she would have turned me down. But it was Marjorie Liu. I wanted Christopher Priest or Marjorie Liu to write Vampirella for the 50th. So Priest was like, and I said, "Look, here's the thing, dude. Her 75th, this was 2018. I said her 75th anniversary is in 26 years. And I said, no disrespect to you, Priest, but neither you nor I will have the chops to get involved with that. That's going to be beyond us at that point." And he kind of laughed, and I said, "Look, I really want you to write it." I said, "Look, don't give me an answer now. Think about it. I'll call you. You're probably flying back on Monday. I'll call you on Tuesday." And he said, "Well, I'm actually flying back on Tuesday, so call me Wednesday." So he dodged my calls for a couple of days. He really, he dodged my calls, and I just kept calling. He finally picked up, and he gave me every reason in the world why he should not be the Vampirella writer. We'll never let him do what he wants to do. He won't do a good enough job. He's not familiar enough with the character. I said, Priest, here's the thing. Let me call you Christopher to show you how serious I am. I said, Christopher, I'm hiring Christopher Priest for a Christopher Priest story. I'm not hiring Christopher Priest for a Nick Baruchi story. And I said, I really want you to be the guy. And I said, he's like, I don't even know the villains. I don't know what I do. And I went through the villains. I was like, dude, you can even do a hush. I was like, look, let me throw out a bad idea that you would make good if you wanted to do it. I said, you could do a hush thing where Lilith, her mother, is playing her. And Lilith is really hush and getting all the villains, and, you know, like Detective 526, where Croc is getting all the villains team up to go after Batman. I said, beautiful Don Newton art, Jerry Conway script. That's where Jason Todd becomes Robin. I said, you can do whatever you want. So we get on the phone with our editors. And again, Priest is telling us every reason why he should not be the writer. And I'll never deliver a script on time. And we're like, Priest, sorry, man, you're committed. I literally said, you're committed. Sorry, you're doing this. And it is one of the greatest books we've ever published. 5 years later, he's still writing
the book, man.
And he can write the book as long as he wants. He will never be taken off the book. He will be off the book the day he says, I've told every story I want to tell. You know, just like Garth finished The Boys when he was done every story he wanted to tell. I mean, it took Garth years to think of you know, a lot of writers will just capitalize like, oh my God, I got to keep, like with Garth, I got to keep The Boys going. It's making me, Garth is like, I told my stories. If I tell stories I don't want to tell, the audience will know. And I don't want to do that. You know, I want to tell stories that I want to tell. So Priest can write Vampirella till the end of the days, as far as I'm concerned, because that's his book. And then we've got people like Tom Snigowski, the person who's written more Vampirella than anybody else, although I think Priest is catching up now.
He's getting up there, man.
Yeah. And, you know, it's been one of those things where, again, when you're in the middle of it, you don't have time to think about it. If you sit there and think about it, you're not doing your job. You're, you know, when I do these interviews, that's when I actually think about it. And that's the whole.
And I love that you remember things. You know, you're talking about like how you apologize. You're trying to recall all these things. But I think a lot of the stories come from that, though. I mean, you were there when all these things were happening. You remember the stress, the sleepless nights when all these things were happening. Not that you don't have any of those these days, because you're always, I mean, Nick, you are still taking gambles. I see it now. I remember last year, I was at New York Comic Con and I was texting you with the announcements were going on. I'm like, dude, this is going, you guys are going crazy over there, Dynamite. Like, oh no, it was in 2020. The 2022 New York Comic Con, when the announcements were coming out about all the Disney books, and you were like, oh man, and we've got all these other things lined up. And I was like, this is crazy, but good on you. I've got a message here from my buddy Josh talking about taking a gamble. He's taking a shot here. Would love to do another cover for y'all. He's done a cover for you guys before. He's a wonderful artist. And Omar, could you share the Big Barda? So he is going to Heroes Con and he's doing a Big Barda print. Let me just show you really quick because it is a beautiful print. Yes, give us a Josh Greathouse Red Sonja cover. Let me just show you really quick, Nick. This is what it looks like, and it doesn't do it justice. This is a beautiful piece that he's doing for the Heroes Con, and I think that's the actual print that's going to be auctioned off, and all proceeds will go to. I can't remember. They always do something a little bit different, but he is selling like 100 limited edition prints of his Big Barda.
That is beautiful. That is gorgeous. Yeah, man. Give him my email address. Drop me a line. It's it's Nick.Barucci, Nick.Barrucci @ dynamite.com. Adam, Marjorie Liu, when Gail Simone was writing Red Sonja, and we were doing Legends of Red Sonja, she wrote a short story there. Kelly Sue DeConnick did. Quite a few people did. I think we did ask her for one or two other things, and she did turn us down. Look, you guys got to keep in mind, Marjorie Liu is not only a comic writer, but she's a novelist. And it's one thing when she was writing for Marvel and got to tackle those characters. Just, she's busy, and maybe we didn't have the character she liked. I mean, that's the thing there. Summoner, 250K. What's 250K? You'll have to.
I don't know. I think he's trying to guess. I think so. Any chance? Wait. This is from our buddy Kane. Good afternoon, all. I'm late, but that's okay. From one New Jersey into another, thank you for all that you do, Nick and Dynamite.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure.
There you go. Kane is great. I met her at New York Comic Con last year. Speaking of New York Comic Con. And any chance you're getting a Vampirella movie? Speaking of Vampirella, Nick, I was putting you on the spot.
Oh no, we're working on it.
You go.
There's hopefully going to be an announcement after San Diego Comic Con. We're in discussions. I mean, these things. Listen, the Boys TV series was an 11-year overnight success. It was at Sony for years. Say a general number for having a license. There is no
He's really
number.
Taking a shot.
There is no number. I mean, we have paid $250,000 for some licenses, and we've paid $10,000 for licenses. It's all different. King's Port Call. Vampy is doing her OG costume, and actually, if the TV series and movie happened, I made sure Christopher Priest was a part of it. That's the big thing. So Marjorie Liu, she's just a great writer. She's a brilliant writer, and would love to work with her one day. But I also need to take solace in the fact that she wrote a short Red Sonja story, which was fantastic. We were really, really blessed there. So, always appreciate what you have. Don't be jealous about what you don't have. Don't be envious about what you don't have. I think too many people focus on what they don't have instead of what they do. I did that ICV2 interview last week or the week before, and a lot of people focus on all the negative shit. Like comic sales are down, the industry is terrible.
Wait. Where was this?
ICV2.
Okay, and who was focusing on the negative aspect of
there are people focusing on the negative aspect as an overall. I focused on the positives. I made sure I said, look, we're having our best year ever. And this may end to date. And this may end up being our best year ever. Our Space Ghost sales are going up. Thundercats sold 200,000 copies. We sold 75,000 copies, I think, of Space Ghost with reorders. Our Space Ghost number 3 sales are almost exactly the same as number 2, and they may actually go higher than number 2. My biggest disappointment in life right now, if I had to give a disappointment, there is one disappointment that I have right now. Since you're publishing, is there some hope for... We did ask about Pirates of Dark Water, actually, Kane. We'll see what happens. I don't think it's going to come together right now, but we did.
I love that you are able to engage the audience while talking to me and telling a story at the same time. You're a machine, Nick. Look at you.
I'm not here without these guys. They deserve my attention. I mean, that's why I'm happy to give my email address,
Well, I'm actually writing an introduction email between the both of you, and you guys figure something out.
Nice.
Because I think that Josh is a very talented artist and creator. I have hope. That's right. Hope always springs eternal, Kane.
Yeah. I mean, look at Ultimate Spider-Man right now by Jonathan Hickman. The book keeps selling out, going back to press. You've got Ultimate Black Panther doing well. I love everything Marvel's been doing with Amazing Spider-Man and Gang War. I think Zeb Wells, John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna plus Patrick Gleason plus Ed McGuinness are killing it. I love what DC's doing with Mark Waid, bringing him back. He's bringing so many great stories. I'm excited that Scott Snyder's coming back. Dark Horse is doing a great job with Stranger Things, and Mike Mignola is still a machine over there. Ghostbusters looks cool from Dark Horse. Image is killing it with Skybound. You want to hear something funny? I've said this before, but I'll say it again. We were told by Hasbro that we had the second best offer on G.I. Joe. And this one I'm happy to tell because we didn't sign the contract, so there's no NDA here. We offered $500,000 and got turned down. So
for G.I. Joe after IDW. Dude, I remember me and Vince were talking, and this was when it was all hush-hush, right? But what's funny is like when you go to shows and you talk to people and you network, they're like, oh yeah, we know who's got the rights. Like the artists and writers kept guessing. Larry Hama, when I actually interviewed him, he was like, oh yeah, Skybound's signing me a check. So I assume they have the rights. Of course, none of that aired, right? Because I understand you have to keep secrets. But I remember I was like, oh, Nick, if you get G.I. Joe and Transformers, man, that's crazy, brother.
Yeah, we offered $500,000 and we were told we were the second best offer. And if the deal would have fell apart with Skybound at the contract stage, they would have come back to us. But, so when Energon Universe came out, I actually emailed Hasbro and congratulated them on the success. And they said no competitor has ever done that with them in any category they've ever had. And the email I sent was, look, I think we would have done a great job on G.I. Joe and Transformers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and we would have executed perfectly. We would have had great talent. The quality would have been there, but I don't think we would have thought of getting, oh God, I can't remember.
Warren Johnson?
Daniel Warren Johnson, writing and drawing.
Don't sell yourself short. You went after Mike Carey when nobody was thinking about that. Like, I mean, if you've done some things thinking outside the box. I think.
Well, look, I'm telling you right now, me personally would not have thought of it. My editors might have thought of it. So, true. It's not all about me. I've got a great editorial team and a great sales and marketing team. James Abel, same thing. Pirates of, to finish up.
Well, people are taking their shots with Pirates of the Pirates of Dark Water. I almost said Caribbean. What's really interesting is that show never really had a wrap up, right? It's very similar to like or Gargoyles. Yeah, you're familiar with that, like Gargoyles show, and now there's the comic, and you had a wonderful Kickstarter. But you know what? It's comics, right? So there's always hope.
Absolutely, and with both Warner Brothers and Disney, there are so many properties. The one thing we have to do is we can't just get all the properties just to get them. We have to, as we're adding properties, we have to execute them right. If we took 20 more Disney and Warner Brothers properties and did a half-assed job, who wants that? But if we take 4 or 5 at a time and do a great job, then we can get more. So we have to just keep doing a great job. And, it's funny. I will say this on Space Ghost, Thundercats was a pretty cool decision. Nate Cosby came and brought Declan Shalvey, and we drove Declan crazy because he did 20 live streams promoting Thundercats #1.
When he joined me, he was exhausted. He's like, but I got this. And he was phenomenal. And like Joe Ryban, our executive editor, there were a couple of names that we were talking about, including I don't want to ever mention any names of people we didn't approach because it's not fair to them. But we had this one really high profile writer that we wanted to approach, and there were a couple of writers. And David Pepose has wanted to work with us. You think I'm tenacious? David Pepose has wanted to work with us for 10 years. And wow.
I said to Joe, his Savage Avengers is good. He's a great writer. What is it? Lock and Spence was his creator-owned book where he made his name.
Yeah.
If anybody knows, pop it out there. I think it's Lock and Spence, but I could have it wrong. I said, I think David would do a great job. We should roll the dice with somebody.
Spencer Locke.
Spencer Locke.
Yeah, that's it.
I said, I think getting David Pepos, not only will he do a great job, but he'll promote the heck out of it. He's a next news person. He knows how to promote. And we went with him, and we had the best-selling Space Ghost book probably since Gold Key. I mean, look, DC had a great series with Joe Kelly and Ariel Olivetti, and that book sold like 32,000 copies. But we launched at 67,000, which was, and we're at 75,000, I think, with reorders. So, I think a lot of people would have went a different direction with Vampirella than we did going with Christopher Priest. And then we followed up with Tom Snagowski on Vengeance of Vampirella 25 years after he did the first Vengeance of Vampirella. So it was kind of weird announcing a 25th anniversary in the middle of a 50th anniversary. Probably a little confusing.
Yeah. No, but I think it makes, from a comic book standpoint, it kind of makes sense. I will be buying Thundercats, Space Ghost, and Johnny Quest when they release in trade or hardback. Since I have the Gargoyles in hardback, I backed the Gargoyles Kickstarter too. And the fact that DC never followed up on that version of Space Ghost was redonkulous. Future Quest was cool, though. I forgot they did the Future Quest stuff. I forgot they were doing that for a little while.
Future Quest was brilliant. I mean, Jeff Parker's just a great writer. He does not get the credit he deserves.
I say that every time I talk about Agents of Atlas, anytime I talk about his Red Hulk. I am a huge fan of Jeff Parker, and anything he writes has been just amazing to read. And you're right. It's one of these writers that for some reason doesn't get... I think sometimes in life, this, sometimes it takes just one run or one book to have your name out there. And that's the one. I don't know why that is, especially with comic books. Nick, are you with me? Are you frozen or am I frozen? Oh my gosh. I hope it's not me. Can anybody still hear me? Okay, good. Okay. Hey there, Nick. Can you get the IP for Scooby Apocalypse with the Jim Lee cover? Nick's frozen. Okay. I'll let him know. Thank you all. Sometimes, the internet could be just me. I'll let him know that he's frozen, and I'm sure he knows by now. Let me just make sure. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. This has been such a fun educational conversation. And I wanted to talk about the Humble Bundle because they have this amazing Humble Bundle going on right now. And let me just pull that up really quick and tell you. I do have the link to the Humble Bundle that's going on right now from Dynamite in the description of our video. But in case you don't want to go there right now, you're watching this live. This is the Humble Bundle, right? Oh, look at, dang, dude. There we go. Thank you. Not sure what's going on. I just texted him. Maybe he was talking about his internet being out, but this is the Humble Bundle that's going on right now. And the beauty of this Humble Bundle is that this is not only celebrating their 20th anniversary of Dynamite. There's Nick. I'll let him explain.
Sorry.
I was going solo. I was like, well, Nick is gone. I'm going to explain the Humble Bundle. It's okay, Nick. So I was just explaining the Humble Bundle and talking about, I put a link in the description of the video, but James already beat me to it, my Forever Oracle, and explaining what exactly it is and how many freaking titles. And for people that don't know anything about Humble Bundle, Nick, what is the price for all these digital titles?
So there's 74 graphic novels. There's over 20,000 pages, and we really wanted to reward fans that supported us. So usually with Humble Bundle, let's say on a bundle, you might get a few books for $1, a few more for $8. And then once you get to $25, you get the whole bundle. we decided to just say 20th anniversary, 20,000 plus pages, $20 across the board. And not only do you get 20,000 pages, 74 books, and some of the books are omnibuses. You get Gail Simone, you get Mike Carey and Michael Avon Oming, you get everybody from Kurt. I think we have a Kurt Busiek book. Let me see. I got the list right here.
You've got Superpowers in there.
Yep.
That's Jim Kruger, Alex Ross. You've got the classic Red Sonja in there with Roy Thomas and Frank Thorne, of course, Neil Adams. Jungle Girl, which is Frank Cho. You know more about this stuff than I do, but
Jennifer Blood, which is Garth Ennis, and then Al. God, what's Al's last name? Oh my God, he's been the big Marvel writer. He wrote Immortal Hulk.
Al Ewing.
Al Ewing.
Mm-hmm.
Al Ewing. Jungle Girl, like you said, which was Doug. God, I can't remember Doug's last name right now. We've got Weaver by Andy Diggle. We've got Amy Chu. We've got A Train Called Love by Garth Ennis, Leomar, and Josh and John Repion. We've got Alex Ross and God. Oh my God, I can't believe I can't. There's so
there's just so many people that have worked on these books, which goes to show you exactly how many years Dynamite has been around. That, you know, it's not just 20 years of publishing, but it's all of these books and all of these creators, Brian Buccellato and oh my gosh, Jason Sean Alexander and Leah Moore, and there's Legends of Red Sonja is the one that has Gail Simone's stuff in there too.
It has Gail Simone and all the other writers like Kelly Sue DeConnick, art by Colleen Doran, and just, you know, we got Bill Willingham in here, Mark Guggenheim.
Oh, you have Thunda in there. That has the Frank Frazetta, Gardner Fox stuff.
Yep. Stephen Grant on Jennifer Blood, First Blood, I think. We have Mike Carey on Barbarella.
That Peter Cannon book was amazing. The Kieran Gillen's book. That book was amazing.
Devolution by Rick Remender. Ex-Con by Dwayne Swarzinski. I mean, this is such a both Peter Cannons. Steve Darnell, I think it is. Steve Darnell with Alex Ross on one of them. Kieran Gillen on the other. Kevin Smith on Green Hornet, Andy Parks on Seduction of the Innocent, Jim Kohoric on Reanimator, Christopher Priest, just so many different books. And again, Dan Wickline on Karma, just Eric Troutman, God, there's so much. I even forgot. And the other thing is, which is another plus, is that a little bit of a portion of every pledge goes to the Hero Initiative. And right now, the Hero Initiative is at $7,419 in money raised so far.
That's amazing. And if you've never been to one of the claim sales here on Near Mint Condition, one of the ones that we did with Nick was the to donate money to the Hero Initiative. And if you're not familiar with the Hero Initiative does, a lot of comic book creators here in America, there is like no retirement. There's no like health insurance and things like that. So what the Hero Initiative does is help folks like that. They've helped like William Messner Loebs. I think that's one of the best examples of just, you know, he was homeless for a while. They put him in a home. Peter David, they've helped him with a lot of the hospital bills that he can't afford. Him and his wife can't afford, and they're doing their own crowdfunding too. So it's a wonderful organization. Mike Wieringo, I remember one of the few times I met Mike Wieringo, like he was a big believer in the Hero Initiative. Like he did not take money for signatures. He's like, if you want to donate something, put your money in the Hero Initiative jar. So this is a wonderful organization that has been around for years. And I think it's wonderful. And the reason I was like, I'm going to get Nick on the show to talk about the history of Dynamite. So I'm glad he did, but also to talk about the importance of, you know, like I said, this is the home of collected editions. I love physical books, but when it's something like this that is giving back to this wonderful community of just different creators, writers, artists, inkers, letters, colors, whomever it was, I think it's a good thing to spread the word. So even if you can't give $20, even if you can only give $1, I think it's a great deal. Sorry, Nick.
Listen, let me just say that 20,000 pages, it will take you months to read all of this. Unless you sit down for a week and do almost nothing else, this will take you so long to read. It's just a great read. Yeah, William Mesner Loebs is such a shame because he's such a great writer that doesn't get enough due. I mean, what he did with Wonder Woman and The Flash.
Yep. Nick
and
knows.
He was living in this car. He was a janitor. I mean, it was so sad. It just, you know, there's a lot of creators. There is ageism, unfortunately, in our industry. And, you know, which is one of the reasons working with Priest is so great. You know, we are, I think we're a little bit more diverse in some ways than a lot of publishers. And, you know, like I said, I mean, you know, we've got living legends like Christopher Priest, and we've got up and comers like David Pepos. We've worked with people like Gail Simone, who's fantastic. You know, and sometimes it's opportunistic. Like I talked to Gail Simone for a long time about working together. And it was when she went through the Batgirl debacle that we were the first person to call them. We were the first people to call her. And I was just like, we want to work with you still, Gail. We really want to work with you. And her Red Sonja run was fantastic.
Oh, like it is awesome. And honestly, I echo what my buddy Bunkmaster said. You know, we need more collections like that. That was a beautiful collection, and it's sitting alone on the shelf. Nick, we need more big collections like that. We've got Vampirella's big anniversary happening, and it would be good to have more classic collections, more of the new runs. Christopher Priest runs on Vampirella would be cool. And I know you and I have talked, you know, behind the scenes through emails about things that I would never say to anybody. That's just between you and I about possibilities of collections. I think, you know, people just love having these bigger books and trade paperbacks and the ability to be able to read these in a collected edition format. And they've been waiting for big collections. And I think I've shared that with you before. Like there are people that are like, man, I can't do trade paperbacks. Give me something big and sturdy, and they can charge me. That's what I want.
I've got a feeling that a Christopher Priest omnibus is in our near future.
He's got enough issues in, but you know what? He can keep working. This is an interesting question. Does Dynamite still have the rights to Zorro? I'd love to see a deluxe version of Matt Wagner's Zorro.
We do not. We do not have the rights to Zorro anymore. You remember how we were talking about how we didn't have our name out there for a couple of years?
Mm-hmm.
So Matt Wagner approached Michael Avon Oeming when we announced Zorro. I don't think we had our names in there. It was just Dynamite announcing it. And, you know, since Michael Avon Oeming was writing Red Sonja, he reached out to Matt Wagner. And Oeming does an introductory email, and he goes, you know, Matt Wagner meet Nick Baruchi, Nick Baruchi meet Matt effin Wagner, and Matt responds with, Nick Baruchi, I've known him since he was a kid. You're the publisher of Dynamite?
Oh, Wagner! I mean, Wagner's been around for such a long time. I mean, Mage, brother. How long did we wait on Mage 2? I remember having Mage 2 coming soon t-shirts when I was a kid, and I was like,
when was Mage 2? Like the early aughts again?
That was the early aughts. That's how long we went.
20 years. We waited 20 years.
Man. I'm still waiting for them to properly collect Mage in a hardcover form. I still have the slip cases that came out a long time ago. Yeah. You stick around in the industry and you don't realize it, right? Like you grow up with these stories, and the creators, unlike the stories, they don't stop aging. They keep going. They keep cranking out stuff. Oh yes, and Grando is also my jam. Um, I think it's Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy's working on a Zorro book for Massive. That was the Kickstarter book that they did.
I think the better way to say that is Sean Gordon Murphy is working on Zorro for himself, but he brought it to Massive.
They're doing I guess they're doing the public release of it. Or
yes, yeah. I mean, Sean Gordon Murphy's a huge Zorro fan. He got the license himself. He personally got the license.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Speaking of licenses, yes, Killing Joke is also part of the One Bad Day box set. But the most important thing to take out of this, besides all the knowledge that Nick has shared with us in the history of Dynamite, is checking out that Humble Bundle, because it does, the proceeds will, some of the proceeds will go to a great cause, and you're getting some great books and reading out of it digitally. Huge fan of Michael Avon Oeming. If one day Dynamite ever gets the rights to the victories, we really need his amazing artwork oversized. They keep saying oversized, Nick.
I got a feeling. Look, we made a mistake, and I'm happy to admit it. We collected the Adventures of Red Sonja, the old Frank Thorne material, and all the other Marvel material, and we made a huge mistake and made it normal size. So when we reissue that, it will be oversized. Everything that's a hardcover omnibus, we're looking at oversized. We almost made that mistake with Terminator, and we oversized that thanks to feedback from Omar and for the fans. Look, there are things that fans ask that we can't do, which upsets a lot of fans. But the things that we can do, we love doing. And it's so meaningful to hear from the fans, to have them happy. Like I said, it's when you're in the middle of it. Like the time I think about it the most is when I'm having an interview. That's when I get to think about it. But like 2 minutes after this interview, I'm going to have a nectarine and go back to work. So,
dude, as soon as this interview is over, I got to take my wife out to eat, and then I got to go. Oh no, I got to go pick up my kid too. And then I got to come home and film a video and edit the videos that I've filmed today. It's nonstop, man. That's why I like talking to Nick. Like minds, never stops. The hustle never stops.
Josh,
I'm not buying $500,000 licenses. I'm just putting out videos out there.
Well, apparently neither am I, because we didn't get the license.
But you almost had it. Is that pre-orders? Okay, this is a good question. Is it that pre-orders are the lifeline that best serves companies? Placing orders in advance would be the most effective way to support various projects and keep them steady?
Yes, because what happens is when you pre-order, there's pull lists at retailers. The more you put on a pre-order, the more comfortable retailers are to order extra copies for the stand. So pre-orders are a lifeline, not just for publishers, but for retailers as well.
Hope that answers your question. You have Johnny Quest coming out. What about the classics Kamiko? I know I've been asking a lot.
We're working on it. We are working on it. The classic Kamiko would be great. The Kamiko Space Ghost would be great. We want to do the oldest material first, and there are sometimes hoops to go through to be able to do it. So the desire is there. So it's a matter of getting there. I mean, and on a lot of this, when we did the Gargoyles material, it's funny when we do a Kickstarter, and maybe not haha funny, but like we did the Gargoyles Kickstarter, and when we do a Kickstarter, we look at it like publishing a comic. If we solicit a comic and it doesn't sell what we needed to, we still put out the comic. When doing a Kickstarter, even if a Kickstarter isn't as successful as we like, we still do it. Like the Terminator Kickstarter, I think we had a $25,000 outward goal, but the internal goal was $150,000 to break even. Oh. And when you explain it to people, a lot of fans do get upset. They're like, you had a $25,000 goal, you're at 100,000. Why aren't you doing like more stretch goals, more this, more that? And it's like, and we do explain it to people. We will go out there and say, look, that's our external goal. Because here's the thing. The worst thing we could do is put up there $150,000 goal. And then if we don't hit it, not be able to put out the books. So like Gargoyles, we had a 50,000 goal, but our real number was 450,000 because we had to digitize the material. We have to pay the royalties. Kickstarter takes their fee. 5% of the customers' credit cards don't go through. Then the printing of the books. And another thing about doing Kickstarters is it really actually, thank you, James. It really allows us to put out more books. If we didn't do Kickstarter on the Gargoyles, we probably would have put out one a year because of all the expenses and the time that goes into it. But because we did it on Kickstarter, we can ship all of them to the Kickstarter fans at once, and then we can release them monthly to the comics market, and retailers can make more money. The other thing about Kickstarters that a lot of people don't know, and you're not expected to know, Summoner, that's very kind of you. The other thing about Kickstarters is they're a good marketing tool. People will look at your Kickstarter, they won't want to pay in advance, but then they know about it so that when you solicit it, they can order from their local retailer or from Barnes & Noble or from Books A Million or from Amazon, because now they're aware of it and it brought you more awareness. So Kickstarter helps pay for some projects, but also markets it. So like for Gargoyles, if we would have made $50,001, we still would have done that even though we didn't hit $450,000. If on Terminator, if we made, I'm not going to say $25,001, if we would have made $55,000 or $25,001, we still would have gone to $150,000. I mean, even though we didn't hit 100, we still would make the collections because we have a commitment to the fans. Remember what I said early on about as a publisher, why I didn't want to be a publisher? Because you're responsible to not only your employees and your freelancers, but also to the retailers and the fans. The important part is delivering. I think there's only been one comic in our history where we solicited it and the numbers didn't come in, and we haven't resolicited yet, but we are going to resolicit it. It's just figuring out how to make it work. We've even toyed with the idea of just putting it online for free, that it's almost better to put it online for free if we can't figure out how to make it work. So, I don't want to say what it is, not because of us, but because of the creative team. They put a lot of effort into it.
That's a really interesting approach, putting it out there for free online. So, Nick, can you give us a tease as to what may be coming later on from Dynamite? I know we mentioned, well, James was kind enough to share that. Actually, my buddy BJ Kicks, Comics Are Dope, got to break the news. I love that dude on the Darkwing Duck Kickstarter. But what kind of things do you have lined up? I know you got San Diego Comic-Con. That's right around the corner.
We have two great guests at San Diego Comic-Con that no one will see coming. We've got
now I need to go. Well, I can't though. I'm going to be in Japan. But go ahead, Nick. Who's going to be there?
Japan, San Diego.
I don't know. Depends on the guest. Is one of them Christina Hendricks? Because I may cancel my
maybe.
I'll do that to me. All right. So two big guests coming. Nobody will see it coming.
I will say people are going to love the creative team on Terminator. We'll be announcing that at San Diego. I think people will be ecstatic about, Garth Ennis has been doing a great James Bond, but I think people are going to be ecstatic about the James Bond we're going to announce in San Diego. We just have some really, really cool projects and some big projects. There's a a big. This is going to be an obvious tease if I say it.
Well, you don't have to say anything, Nick.
Let's just say there's a big hero coming soon. So we'll leave it at that.
Big hero.
I'm still trying to get the Iron Giant. That still hasn't come together. I think Iron Giant would make a great comic. But that hasn't come together yet. John Cena confirmed. All right. I will say this to Troy. I will say this. We are trying to get Alf. We haven't gotten it yet.
Shut up, Nick. Are you serious?
Yes.
Nick,
yes.
Don't do that.
Yes, we are trying to get Alf. I'm not kidding. I'm serious.
You know what? If you need an announcement of an Alf Omnibus, you go and get. I'm gonna put Melanie in front of the camera. She can announce the Alf.
I don't think you're putting Melanie in front of the camera. I think she's gonna push you out of the way.
Yes, probably.
So yes, if Alf can come together, that would be fantastic. So we are trying now. Every other publisher who hears this is going to be like, "Oh, Alf is available. Let's beat Nick's offer." So
I hope it doesn't turn into the Skybound Transformers. That's the big tease I get. Alf.
Anything can happen. Oh, by the way, by sending that email to Hasbro congratulating them and saying that we felt as great of a job as we did, Skybound did a better job. They actually came. They came back to me and said we should find something to do. We've never had anybody do that. Competitor congratulate us. And they said, what else would you like to do? And we were like, well, we'd like to do trading cards on Transformers and G.I. Joe. And they said, you know what? We'll give you the Transformers trading cards for the 40th anniversary. So, something nice. Look, at the end of the day, I'm not unhappy when my competitive publishers do well. When they do well, the industry does well. I don't have to win by other people losing. I like to win by trying harder. Like Skybound right now is doing the real quick, I'm going to look it up. They're doing the G.I. Joe Kickstarter, and with they're at $1.5 million already. To me,
that's crazy.
To me, that's inspiring. To me, I'm looking at that, really happy for them. They're putting out a book that the fans will love, that eventually the comic community will love, but also them retailers can carry them because the books are made. So, look, the first people who raised the bar on Kickstarter were Boom. They changed the way everybody looked at Kickstarter. They absolutely changed the way it could be done. And that goes to show that you can learn from people. And that goes to show what marketing does for a book. Because Berserker not only took in $1.4 million.
That was insane, brother.
Right. But then the comic sold 600,000 copies. So that really framed the way you looked at everything differently.
I know that every time, man, I know you and I think like this when we, like, anytime people are like, oh, comics are dead, there's no money in comics anymore. Man, you just peek your head at one of these comic conventions. It's insane. Like people, or one of these Kickstarters and crowdfunded books, like, it's still there. The passion is still there. Things, that drive people, whether it's nostalgia or something new, comics are still a big part of this American pop culture. Like it's amazing. And I always, I don't know. There's a lot of negativity out there. That's for sure. En realidad, Omar, estoy celoso de tu pasado viaje a Japón. Siempre he querido ir. De verdad, hermano, allí. Cómprame una barratilla en esta próxima visita. Nick is cool. He's a good dude.
Thank you. You know, the thing is
Don't do that to me, Sasmer.
no, I mean, look,
Maximus, you did an art Alf cover.
that would be phenomenal.
I'm
That would be phenomenal. No, look, here's the thing. Half our comics lose money. Half of our comics lose money, period. It just happens. But we still put them out, you know? And I don't want to say which half lose money right now because, again, that's not fair to the creators. You want to know one thing that I hate, Omar? There is one thing I absolutely despise in this industry. And it is, to me, in so many... Yeah, Chip Zdarsky writing Alf would be great.
Oh my God, what are you doing, Nick? Stop. Don't look at the chat. Just go ahead. Tell me what you hate, Nick. Tell me what you hate.
I hate anybody who blames the audience. I hate any creator who blames the audience. I hate it. You know, Ridley Scott did that one movie with Matt Damon, and he blamed the audience for the period piece where I don't even remember what the movie was, but it came out 2 years ago. It bombed. You can Google it, Rogue. I don't remember what it is. Maybe maybe the fans know. But he actually blamed the fans. You know, I have a friend.
Not the Green Knight. Oh gosh.
No, not the Green Knight, but the other one.
Last duel, right? But the one with the Affleck,
yeah, something like that. And the Last Duel.
Solid.
Okay,
that was a solid movie.
Well, but see, the movie didn't perform, and Ridley Scott blamed the audience. And I hate that. I think that's one of the most despicable, conceited things you could do. I have a friend who will not do interiors. He only did interiors once, I think, in the last 10 years. And he blames the audience. He said that the audience deserted him. And my response is, the audience didn't desert you. You could make the best comic in the world, and people might not read it. That's not your fault. That's not the audience's fault. You can do an okay comic, and a ton of people can read it. It's just what clicks. You don't know what clicks. You don't know what might click. You don't know what doesn't click. But you can never, ever blame the audience. It is such a cop-out. It is such a... So I just wanted to mention one thing. You know, I'm a very optimistic person. I try and be pragmatic and optimistic. But there is one thing that absolutely I despise, and it's anybody who blames the audience. Like I said, half my comics lose money, but I still put them out because the audience deserves it, you know?
Well, and honestly, here's the thing, too. Like, I come from the... Look, a lot of my favorite creators, probably a-holes in real life. But I can separate the artist from the art. Not everybody's like me. So if somebody is... going out there and saying, yeah, no, this movie didn't do well because the viewers didn't come and watch it, or the comic book didn't do well because readers didn't come and read it. It's the audience fault. That's going to turn off a lot of people from doing that. Like going back and reading anything else you wrote, anything else you directed. Like, it's just the truth.
Well, look, there was a movie, and I don't want to name it. I mean, but the director said that movie was not made for men. And then when the movie bombed, that director said it's all men's fault because they'd rather watch Spider-Man than my movie. And
I feel like I know that quote from something. Who said that? Amanda and I do our movie show, and I feel like we talked about that.
Well, I'll say it. It was Charlie's Angels. It was Charlie's Angels. Right before the movie came out, they said, this isn't for fanboys. And then when the movie... And by the way, I thought it was a decent movie. I watched it.
You're talking about the new one.
Yeah, the new one that came out a few years ago.
I'll be honest, I've completely forgot that movie existed.
Well, and the book and the movie did not perform, but it was I thought it had some nice twists. I thought it was pretty cool. But then after the movie didn't perform, all of a sudden, all fanboys and men got blamed because we'd rather watch Spider-Man. And it's like, how do you do that? How do you blame the audience? You know, It's a decent movie. I saw it. I enjoyed it. You know, I you can't just blame the audience for something going wrong. You know what you do? You just do your next one. You do your next comic. You do your next movie. You know, Chronicles of Sarah Connor, 2 great seasons left on a cliffhanger.
Oh yeah, that had Lena Headey in it, right?
Yeah,
it was a good show.
And what's her name? Who the Firefly actress? I forget her name. Summer.
Summer Glau.
Yeah, I think it was Summer Glau. And you know, I mean, and I really think that when you spend time blaming the audience, you don't spend time thinking of how to make the next thing better. And again, like I said, Charlie's Angels, I enjoyed that movie. But why blame the audience? Why? I have this conversation all the time. Look, we did The Lone Ranger and Andy Parks was doing a great job. But I told Andy the book might get canceled at any time. I said, I need you to do done in 1 stories, done in 2 stories. Because after issue 12, it was real, you know. And by the way, there's a reason why I'm saying this, because I said to you, I don't want to blame any books that aren't doing well. This is a problem that I see in our market. I said, look, you need to do done in 1, done in 2 stories, because if we need to cancel the book, I don't want to be in the middle of the series, and I don't want to do that to you where I'm rushing you. And you know what happened when we started doing done in 1 and done in 2 stories? Sales went up. I think we do too many decompressed stories now. Everybody wants to write for the trade, you know, and you know,
but you can still make trades out of single story arcs. I mean, Ryan North is a perfect example of that on his Fantastic Four. He is doing 1 issue, done, 1 and done. And then there's every once in a while, there's 2 issues and like old school Stan Lee and Jack Kirby era type of storytelling. Like there is room
not
for
even that. You and I both love George Perez, Teen Titans.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely, yeah.
Judas Contract was a multi-part story, but you know, all the stories before then were. Listen, Denny O'Neil said it the best. You have an A part to a story, a B part, a C part, and a D part, and they can all be single stories. The A part ends, and then the B becomes the A, the C becomes the B, the D becomes the C, and you have a new D. But you know what? Sometimes, depending on where the story's going, the A may end and the C may become the A, or the D may become the A because of where the story is taking you. But you can have 1 and done stories or 2 issues done. I mean, 2 of my favorite issues of Spider-Man are 231 and 232 with Mr. Hyde and the Cobra. Those were good. 2 issues done. You know, the Hobgoblin 238 to like 260, he wasn't in every issue, but when he came back, it wasn't all about the Hobgoblin. You know, I'll make this comment that I've made before. Crisis on Infinite Earths number 8. Crisis is my favorite all-time series. Number 8, my favorite all-time issue. Mixed feelings because Barry Allen's my favorite character, and the fact that he died really upset me. But he died such a hero's death. You know, I've said this before. You know, Supergirl died as a hero would in battle, saving Kal-El's life with all these other heroes around her. Barry was beaten. He was alone, and he did not give up. And he knew that if he could destroy the Anti-Monitor's mechanism, he would give the planets a little bit more time. And he died a hero's death by himself. I get chills when I talk about this. I don't think you can see it, but I'm getting chills. But today, if somebody were to write Crisis on Infinite Earths number 8, that would be a 6-part series. You know, the page with dark.
But then again, it's like, what do you do as a publisher? If it's working and it's selling, then you keep giving the fans what they want and it's selling, right? I get it. But I am a fan of both, like long story arcs collected in a big hardcover, Nick, and also 1 and done issues. Big fan of
look,
both.
Here's the thing. our James Bond books need to be 6 issues. They need to be, because you need to capture the essence of the novel or the essence of a movie.
Yeah.
You can't have a James Bond story in 1 or 2 issues. It's very difficult. But what I'm saying is not everything has to be 6 to 12 issues. And that's one of the things. If I were to say something that was hurting the comics industry today, that's what's hurting the comics industry today, is that you can't just get vested, and maybe I'm an old man. Maybe I'm the old man that appreciated 1 and done, 2 and done stories. That could be the case. But back then, if something was multiple issues, that made it special. With everything being multiple issues, it doesn't. I think it's just too many of those. And I agree with you. Collected editions on your shelf are beautiful, but you have Teen Titans Omnibus on your shelf. That doesn't take away from done in one stories.
I've got X-Men on my shelf. I've got many issues of Wolverine. My favorite issue of Wolverine is issue 34, standalone issue. Didn't need to read anything before, and didn't need to read anything afterwards, but I sure as hell did. Nick, I gotta take my lady out to get some food.
Right.
But listen,
I'll end it with one thing with the X-Men. If you read X-Men 94 to 175, you had underlying stories, but the Death of Phoenix was the one that was like 6 issues. Days of Future Past was perfect as 2 issues. Mm-hmm. It was perfect. If they would have extended that, where would it be? And that's the whole thing. So, dude, thank you for having me. I hope everybody can promote the Humble Bundle.
Go and check out the Humble Bundle. See, what you can give. Even if you don't read digitally, you can gift it to somebody and think of it as donating it to the Heroes Initiative. It's a wonderful cause. Plus, you're getting some reading out of it. Nick, let's get together after you come back from San Diego and after I come back from my Japan trip, and let's do another auction. People have been asking me when we're doing one. Sure. Nick has a lot of cool things, and I love giving back to this wonderful community that has supplied me with countless of hours of entertainment.
Omar, I got to say thank you to you, not just for this interview, but for being a positive voice, because it's people like you that continue to move the industry forward. I've always said this, you're a great ambassador to the industry, and what you do, there are so many, there are many negative people on YouTube and there are many positive people, and we need to all focus on the positive, because this is a great industry. That's why, I say I like to see all my competitors do well, because it's good for the industry. What you do is good for the industry to great for the industry. You help. We were able to do the boys omnibuses, the $100 ones, and I think a lot of them sold to people who bought the trade paperback and the regular omnibuses, but it made them happy. And it made retailers happy. And obviously it worked for us and for Garth and Derek. And so I want to thank you for everything you do for the community. And I want to thank your entire audience that sticks by you and that supports you and that's helping to get you to 100 subscribers. I want you to rock out. I want you to do this forever. I want you to do this till you're tired of it.
Oh man, I don't know if I'll ever get tired of it, but seriously, thank you for the kind words. That means a lot. And it is my absolute pleasure to be able to do this and to talk to folks like you that love comics and lucky enough to be working in comics, right? All the good, all the bad, everything completely worth it at the end of the day. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for talking about the history of Dynamite. And yeah, we'll need to catch up when I get back. And I promise I will reach out to you and Amy.
I'll throw out 3 more things. In addition to the Humble Bundle, in addition to the Darkwing Duck, I want to ask your fans to do one thing. Any comic you like, doesn't matter who it's from, doesn't matter if it's Dynamite, Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, Boom, IDW. When you read a book you love, talk it on social media and tell people why you love it. Keep spreading positive news if you're a fan. There's two people that can promote comics better than anybody to a degree. They are retailers who hand sell them in their store, and there are fans who talk about them. Before the internet, and again, I'm an old man, we would talk about comics in the store and encourage each other to buy comics we weren't reading. I just ask the fan base to do the same thing. Talk about it online, talk about it in stores, focus on the positives, and try and get people to enjoy more. Because that's the only thing you can do, and that you will do. In addition to buying the comics, you will do your part to grow the market. We need this market to grow. We're one of the 3 forms of entertainment that originated in America, or 4, jazz, baseball, comics, and I'm not sure about movies and TV, but let's keep it going so that we can all enjoy this and so that other people can enjoy this. So thank you all. Thank you, Omar. And thanks everybody who's supporting our Humble Bundle and our Darkwing Duck Kickstarter.
And we are out of here.